Oh, I thought it was the first topic. Well, welcome everybody. This is the live stream. We are here from our Huckabee Theater just outside of Nashville, where we'll be taping our show this week. Joining me, as always, Pam Case. Do I call you Pam Case? You know, you got married recently.
I did. Yes, professionally, I'm still Pam Case.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
It's just so much easier for me.
It just rolls off the tongue.
Well, it does, and I've been saying it for 3 years,
Yes,
and suddenly
right.
to try to change, I'm just not that.
Yes, no.
I'm too set in my ways.
That's
I can't
fine, sir.
change that easy.
That works for me.
Ah, well, good, because that's what we're going to continue to do. Well, Pam is with me, and she will be looking at the questions that you send in, which I hope will start immediately. You can send your questions in the chat. If you'd like more visibility, bump them up to the top, send us a super chat. We've got moderators who are watching the chat for the questions. We'll get them to us. We'll get to many as we can throughout the day. A lot of video today to look at as well. Now, we're going to cover some interesting topics. For example, Donald Trump actually considered whether to be the House Speaker. Donald Trump gets another big win over Joe Biden this week, and Candace Owens shares some simple and sage advice for some upset leftists, and they lose their minds, which is not hard, because it's easy for them to lose their minds. We have a pre-show poll, as we always like to start out with. Pam, what's our poll this week?
All right. Which is the correct response to a triggered college child? Ready for this?
Ready.
Bless your heart. Okay, that's the first one. Get a job, wear a helmet, or cower and quake in fear.
I kind of like bless your heart because I'm a Southern guy, and that's just what Southern people would say.
Well, you're so close. 46% of those that participated went with get a job. That was our number one.
That seems
but right
harsh.
behind it, 36% bless your hearts and wear a helmet, and cower and quake and fear followed. But anyway, you were close, but get a job.
See, that's rather abrupt and terse, right? So I kind of like the bless your heart because it gets the point across. I always say that when a Southern woman says bless your heart, it is not a term of endearment.
Absolutely
It
not.
means your guts are about to be spilled on the floor in front of you, and there's not a stinking thing you can do to stop it.
Southern gals have a way of being terse without,
Right.
you know, with holding a flower.
Right. Honey, bless your heart, which is tantamount to take a big step back, get away, arm's length. You're about to get hurt.
Yeah.
I always tell my friends up north, don't assume that when a Southern woman tells you, bless your heart, that she's being sweet, because she ain't. That I can tell you, 100%. All right, our top comment from last week's live stream comes from A Burning Promise. That is the moniker of the person who sent in the statement. Here it is. Quote, debates these days are much like high schoolers arguing. No wonder Trump skipped it. Yeah, I think it was smart on his part to stay away from it. It would have just been a food fight that he would have been primarily the target. And, well, he didn't miss anything, especially the last one. The first one was bad enough. The second one was even worse. I think it was just a total waste of a couple of hours' time. And half the time, you couldn't understand what anyone was saying. They're talking over each other. It was sophomoric.
I know when I'm watching and I'm feeling uncomfortable myself, I'm like, this is not good television.
It just didn't really move the needle toward people saying, yeah, I see our next president on that stage. I don't think people felt that way, but that's me. All right, here's my question for you this week. Does it concern you that Hillary Clinton said yesterday that conservatives need to be, quote, formally deprogrammed, end quote, because they are in a cult? Can you believe she said that? Leave your answers in the chat or in the comments section below. And if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, right now is a very, very good time to do it. Hit that subscribe button, the notification bell. Be sure to give us a like and a share. That all helps us to move the information out to more people. Well, I think there's been a pretty big news week, and most of it happened in the House of Representatives in Washington. It's been kind of crazy, and I think we're going to get to that later in the live stream. I think that's right. Let's go to the border, because it's been kind of crazy, but I guess I'm really out of order here, because I want to first get to Joe Biden and a comment that, as a lot of his comments, they just don't make a whole lot of sense. So before we get to the border, here's a comment this week. Listen and see, do you understand what point Joe Biden is trying to make?
I hope this experience for the speaker has been one of a personal revelation. I'm not being facetious. Anyway.
I wonder how many of you remember the Captain Kangaroo show? Do you remember that?
Oh, yes, sir, of course.
Okay. I mean, I grew up watching Captain Kangaroo, and Grandfather Clock, which was one of the characters, was always asleep, and we had to yell. And I know that my parents must have had a double take at times because we would have to all yell, "Grandfather!" and wake up Grandfather Clock. And we did that all across America, kids screaming at their televisions to wake up. When I watch Joe Biden make a speech, I feel like I'm watching an episode of Captain Kangaroo, and he's Grandfather Clock, and we're going to have to yell at him to wake him the heck up because he's sound asleep, and that's what he sounded like just then.
Yeah.
He sounded sound asleep. He's talking, and all of a sudden, I'm not being facetious. And then he just stands there, and you think, wake him up, give him a good nod. It's interesting when he gives us his reflection on the credibility of the news, which he did in an interview with one of the most disgusting, dishonorable people in the media today, John Harwood. I've known John for 15, 20 years, and I can say that with personal experience and conviction. But, you know, that's the kind of people Joe Biden will sit down with because he'll do whatever John wants him to do. And John will do whatever Biden wants him to do. It's perfect arrangement. Anyway, watch this exchange and Joe Biden giving us his reflection on the media.
What about what Elon Musk has done to Twitter, lowering guardrails against misinformation? Does that contribute to it?
Where do people get their news? They go on the internet. They go online. They go, and you have no notion whether it's true or not.
I'll tell you what you never have a notion of it being true or not is when Karine Jean-Pierre, or as Dan Mandis, our local talk show host here in Nashville, likes to call her, Corinne Jean-Pierre. Love that. I think it's just so good. I wish I'd thought of it. You know, what are you supposed to do? Trust MSNBC or CNN? I don't think so. So when he says, you know, people get their news from the internet, no, it isn't reliable. Most of the time it's nonsense. But where are you going to get it? Just about have to dig it up for yourself.
Yeah, well, that's what we have to do these days.
Yep. Okay, the border, we're going to get to that right now because it has been a huge story and especially got that way on Thursday of this week because Joe Biden, after making all these claims about how he is not going to do anything about the border to build a wall, suddenly decides, well, I guess he will after all. Wonder why? Maybe because of scenes like this. This is some video from El Paso, Texas. You can see just thousands of people coming across the border. I think we're going to show that, are we? Do we have that? There we go. Okay. And they are just, I mean, it's like rushing the field after Arkansas beats Alabama, which I wish they would do this year because we could use a victory. But you see these people just running across the border, and people are getting sick of it. And it's not just at the border where they're getting sick of it. This week in Chicago, there was a town hall with the mayor, and people there are just disgusted because they can't go to a park because it's been turned into a shelter and a campground for illegal immigrants. So watch as these people are giving the mayor of Chicago an earful for his beloved sanctuary city status. Now, what they're all screaming is, you work for us. I don't think those people up there believe that they do. I think that the citizens are just chaff to them. They don't care. But these folks, whether it's in Chicago or Baltimore, New York City, Washington, D.C., they're fed up because their lives are being just upended. They can't walk down the sidewalk without having to step around and over people. It's just gotten absurd. Well, in 2020, during the campaign, Joe Biden made it very clear that he would not be building any foot, not even a foot of the border wall. Watch.
No, there will not be another foot of wall constructed in my administration, number one. Number two, what I'm going to focus on, the fact is that somebody in this group written a lot about the border.
So he says, I'm not going to build a foot. Well, I guess it's half true, because now he has announced this week that he's going to build 20 miles of border wall. He got called on that at the press briefing yesterday with Karine Jean-Pierre, and Peter Doocy of Fox News wanted to know, why did he change?
He said there will not be another foot of wall constructed in my administration. So something changed. What?
You want us to break the law? Is that what you want? You want us to not comply with the law?
I'm not.
But you want us to not comply with the law. You want us to not be in administrations that follow the rule of law.
You guys do this all the time. The student loans, the student loan forgiveness program. You went to court to fight for that. If this is such a problem, building 20 miles of wall, why not just go to court?
We went to Congress. The Congress appropriates the funding.
Why not
Congress,
fight them more?
Congress appropriates the funding. We asked them to not use that funding for that particular purpose. They denied it, and now we're complying with the law.
That was one of the most arrogant responses to a legitimate question that I've ever heard. And her hand on her hip like this, trying to say, what do you want him to do? Break the law? Is that what you want? I say, no, he's been doing that every day since he took office. We'd like for him to keep the law. But for her to pretend that he has to build this 20 miles of wall because it's been appropriated. There are a lot of things that have been appropriated that he hasn't spent the money on. That's nonsense. That's one of the dumbest things. And everyone in that room knew that that was a ridiculous and utterly disingenuous answer to a very legitimate question. This is the guy who said, I won't build a foot of wall. Walls don't work. Then he turns and said, well, we're going to build 20 miles. So that's a legitimate question. What changed? And then she pretends, well, what do you want him to do, break the law? He's been breaking it for 3 years. I mean, if that's the case, if your whole point is he has to do it, then why hadn't he already done it? This was appropriated in 2019. So if he really believed in being forced, that 20 miles should have been built a long time ago. How come he didn't do it? So that is a ridiculous answer. But I wonder, when is the rest of that room going to stand up and yell, that's not true? They just sit there like good little lemmings and go along with it, and that is very frustrating, extremely frustrating. The Biden administration claims that they're building this wall, but here's the interesting thing. 26 different federal laws have to be suspended. So think of this. Some of these are like environmental laws or laws about access. And so he's going to suspend 26 laws. Now, you got Karine Jean-Pierre up there saying, what do you want him to do, break the law? No, just go ahead and break 26 of them in order to build something that you said you would never do. That's the irony. That would be the follow-up question that I would have loved to have seen someone in that White House press briefing pinned down on Karine, is to find out how come. If you got to follow the law, you're breaking 26 of them to do what you said you would never do. Explain that. Of course, she can't and she won't. But here's the interesting thing. Even after Biden announces he's going to build a wall, one of the reporters in a session asked him, well, do you still believe walls work? Watch his answer.
Do you believe the border wall works?
No. Okay, thank you.
I mean, that is unbelievable. They ask him, do you think walls work? And he says, no. And then he shoves them all out of the room. Here's my point. Mr. President, if walls don't work, take the ones that are surrounding you at the White House down. Remember when Reagan said to Gorbachev, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. I think somebody ought to say to Joe Biden, tear down that wall that surrounds you wherever you go. If walls don't work, let's quit having them. Let's don't have them in our nation's capital. Let's don't have them in our prisons. Where else do we have walls? We have them a lot of places. Why do we have those walls? Because they work. Joe Biden says they don't work. So if they don't work, then don't hide behind any wall anymore, Mr. President. I think that would be fair. You know what else would be good? If you would subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, be sure to hit the like button and share. If you do all of those things, you'll be our hero. Yes, you will. Okay, let's take a look at some questions. I'm sure we have some that are coming in.
We do, and I want to start with this, and it's a little off topic from what we've discussed so far. Sue Prov is writing today, a super chat, by the way, so that brought her question to the top. I'm wondering about an update for the family who were on last week, and she's talking about the Rike family, who we had on our show, facing deportation. Saturday we had them on, so an update, please.
And we'll talk about it a little more tonight in the show. When we tape it, it'll air this weekend. Very good news. About an hour and a half ago, I heard from the attorney who was with him last week, and he said that the Immigration and Customs Agency has notified them that they're good for at least another year.
Yes, that's wonderful news.
Wonderful. They were going to be deported this month. This month, they were going to be sent back to Germany to face arrest and high fines and split their family up, for heaven's sakes. It was crazy. So we're not finished. We're going to keep advocating for this family. Let's work hard to get them permanent status so that they can fulfill their hope, which is to get citizenship. They've been here 15 years.
Yes.
I mean,
model citizens.
Model citizens. They have not depended on our taxpayers for anything. They're self-sufficient. They work. They pay for themselves. Hey, they homeschool their kids, so they don't even take the education money that the state of Tennessee would be providing for them. So for all of those reasons, it makes no sense to deport these people. Two of the older sons have now married, and two of the young ladies, the youngest two, were born in the U.S. and are U.S. citizens.
Right.
And so, you know, if you deport the family, what happens? Do the two citizens go over there and get arrested with the rest of the family, taken away from the parents, which is what the German authorities have threatened? I mean, the whole thing was crazy. I appreciate the question, Sue, because very few stories have kind of gotten to me as strongly as that one did. Mm-hmm. And as I'm watching the Romikis, I'm thinking, okay, here's this family that's doing what they're doing right. And then I'm watching juxtaposed against that tens of thousands, hundreds of millions over the past couple of years come across the border, no questions asked. Yeah. Just can't hardly see it. Okay.
On top of that, too, they were just delightful.
They were.
Weren't they just
sweetest family. So nice. Not Swedish, sweetest.
Sweet. Yes. Yes. All right, let's talk about this, too. This came to us last week. It was a super chat, but I wanted Jonathan to have the opportunity to ask this question.
Okay.
Governor, in your opinion, what is the biggest fear the Democrats have with Donald Trump winning and becoming president again? He says, I think they fear arrest and exposed, but just wanting your opinion. Thank you, and God bless America. Yeah,
Jonathan, I think what they fear is that whatever naivete he may have still had at the end of his term, which I don't think was a whole lot, that's been erased. He's now been at the hands of the most ruthless attempt to destroy him on a personal level in his business, in his personal life. The 91 charges, 4 different indictments in 4 different places. I think what they fear is that he will come in guns a-blazing. Frankly, I hope he would and does. But I think it scares them to death, because if he pulls back the layers of the onion and lets the American people start looking, and by the way, it's not just Democrats that are going to be scared. There are some Republicans that are going to be wetting their pants over everything from insider stock trades to foreign entanglements in their business, collusion with China companies. It's not all Democrats, my friend. And I think that's why, watch the Republicans who can't stand him. There's usually more than just they don't like his tweets that are going on.
So another super chat, more of a comment, but I think you'll like this, from Will Fowler. I understand Joe doesn't have a political platform for his reelection because he keeps falling off of it. So
pretty good, Will.
Rhonda Yeager today says, excuse my ignorance, but how does a person get to be speaker if they're not an elected representative?
The rules for being speaker don't require it. I know that sounds interesting. By the way, technically, you don't have to be a lawyer to be a Supreme Court justice. Do you know that?
Wow.
How about that? It's not a requirement in the Constitution. So, you know, there are some weird things. There's never been a person appointed to the Supreme Court that wasn't a lawyer, to my knowledge, but you don't have to be. And I don't think there's ever been a speaker elected who wasn't a member of the House of Representatives, but you don't have to be.
Okay, Bat Lady 5577 says, Jim Jordan, to me, seems to be a good choice for Speaker.
Jim Jordan would be a great choice. Love Jim Jordan. President Trump has endorsed him. Steve Scalise is also running. Love Steve Scalise, one of the finest. And, you know, either way, if it's Scalise or Jordan, we're going to be in fine shape. I think the concern with Steve Scalise, you know, he recently was diagnosed with multiple myeloma, a form of blood cancer. He's undergoing treatment. He says he feels fine and is doing fine and is on the mend. And, you know, goodness, I hope so. But it's a large amount of stress to take the speakership on in the midst of that. So, you know, it's just something to consider. But if he gets elected, I would be thrilled because he is a really solid guy, as is Jim Jordan.
Peter Dowdy writing this afternoon, Governor, I keep asking the same question. I never get an answer. Why don't they try Biden for treason? Impeachment, just a slap on the hand.
Well, you can't, the House can't try Joe Biden for treason. It would require the Justice Department filing those charges. Ain't going to happen. As long as Merrick Garland's there, they're barely going to get Hunter for a parking ticket. And I also think you better have every duck in a row to go after a president for treason. That's a pretty big charge. And you have to prove intent. It's not just what he did, it's why he did it. So there's got to be that. You have to show that he did it to intentionally harm the U.S. government. I think that's a hard sell. I think you could prove that he did it to help himself. I think it'd be very hard to prove that he did it because he intentionally wanted to betray and hurt the United States. That puts it in a different category. You understand?
Right, yes.
And that's where it would be a big wall to jump. Wall. So I'm not sure that would ever work.
Okay. Thank you. Purple Haze writing this afternoon, I know Trump endorsed Jordan, but could Trump have been Speaker and run for president? And while doing so, received immunity from a committee so he could focus on saving the country more?
That's an interesting question. He could run for president, even if he was named Speaker, because a Speaker can run, like any House member can. You're not prohibited from running if you're in that position. Could some committee exonerate him? No, because Congress cannot reach over in the judicial branch and have a consequence that hasn't processed through. And the only entity who can offer clemency or some level of clemency is the executive branch. The legislative branch has nothing to do, no powers related to being able to say, we're letting you off the hook. So they can't do that.
Okay, good explanation. Thank you. William is asking, why is the border of Ukraine so much more important than the border of our own country?
That's a great question. And it's a question that a lot of people in Congress and a lot of other people are asking. I'm not opposed to us assisting Ukraine with a clear intention in mind, because I do understand that if Putin were to win there and he were to invade and take it over, he doesn't stop there. And then it just gets worse and worse. And then if he marches into Poland, which is a NATO country, under Article 5 of NATO, we, the United States, then become obligated to enter into what would be an honest-to-goodness U.S. war. We would be the participants, and we would not have the option of just sending equipment and supplies. We would have to physically go in, and nobody wants that. I can't imagine that anybody thinks that would be a good idea. So it's a sticky thing, but I totally agree that it's ridiculous to say, let's protect the Ukrainian border, but ours, nah, no big deal. That's insane. All right, I want to go to Hillary Clinton. We mentioned this earlier. She was in an interview this week and is talking about Trump supporters. This is one of the most chilling things that a person who has held office and who has wanted desperately to hold office, I think, has ever said. Watch this.
And sadly, so many of those extremists, those MAGA extremists, take their marching orders from Donald Trump, who has no credibility left by any measure. He's only in it for himself. He's now defending himself in civil actions and criminal actions. And when do they break with him? You know, because at some point, you know, maybe there needs to be a formal deprogramming of the cult members, but something needs to happen.
A formal deprogramming. What is she going to do? Round us up and send us to Gitmo? And then who's going to deprogram us?
Right.
Somebody that she appoints? You know, look, I understand she's pretty bitter because Trump beat her in 2016. Of course, I remember when the Clintons loved Donald Trump, invited Donald Trump to Chelsea's wedding, and they were all big pals, and then she found out that he's going to run against me. And then he beat her. And so she hadn't been so kind. I love this term, MAGA extremist. What does that even mean? Yeah. I mean, that's the new Democrat mantra, is MAGA extremist. Well, MAGA stands for Make America Great Again. Who doesn't want America to be great?
Right.
I mean, what kind of person and what kind of citizen are you that doesn't want America to be great?
That's right.
And if you're an extremist, then it means you really want us to be great.
Yeah.
So that part I don't get, but this is chilling comments. Deprogram people. Mm-hmm. I don't think people who supported Trump are in a cult. I look at some of the folks on the left and think, you want to talk about cult? People who think that you can make a city safer by defunding the police and not prosecuting folks who walk into a store and clean out the shelves. That might be kind of cultish.
Yeah, well, and her comments, of course, are the basis for our question of the day. Does it concern you that Hillary Clinton said conservatives need to be formally deprogrammed because they're in a cult? So make sure, if you're watching, that you vote on that today. And question, we'd like to hear from our audience.
We would like to hear, especially in light of the fact now you've seen the video. Kamala Harris is once again giving us her one and only line that she gives. And this is something, you know, when you see it in a compilation, it becomes very clear that whoever's writing this stuff for her, they must really, really like it because they keep putting it in her speeches. But I want you to hear how this line keeps showing up in every speech she gives.
And imagine what can be and be unburdened by what has been, you know?
What can be unburdened by what has been. 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 What we can see, what we believe can be unburdened by what has been. What can be unburdened by what has been.
What can be unburdened by what has been. I mean, you wonder, is she saying that we should forget our history? Should we forget and ignore everything that has happened? That's a very dangerous thing to do. You know, the statement, and I'm trying to remember the George Santoya, I think it was, who said, people who forget history are destined to repeat it. And there is a real sense, but first of all, it just doesn't make good sense. Right. But she must like it because she keeps saying it. All right, one of the funniest comments that I saw this week. This is a lady, and I don't want to make fun of her for her physical characteristics. I'm going to let you watch this without my commentary on the front end, just so you can react and respond to it on your own.
And today I'm going to cover what we are looking for in accessible, size-inclusive hotel amenities. Size-inclusive hotel amenities are crucial for ensuring that plus-size travelers feel welcomed, accommodated, and comfortable during their stay. We deserve an environment that respects our needs and body diversity. These are the exact steps that hotels can take to be more size-inclusive and accessible for travelers of all sizes. Number 1 on the list, provide sturdy, wider chairs without armrests in guest rooms, lobbies, and common areas to accommodate different body sizes and types. Number 2 on the list, ensure beds with strong support and a higher weight capacity, along with providing reinforced chairs and wider bathroom facilities. Number 3, make elevators and hallways spacious to allow for easy movement of larger individuals and those utilizing mobility devices.
There's actually a lot more. It was several minutes worth. There were I think 10 different things she suggested hotels should do, one of which was to make available bathrobes in 6 extra large and above, like 10 extra large, which that would probably be for a 700-pound person, I don't know. But I just watch this, and, I feel for someone who struggles to get, in a bed or a chair, and I'm not making fun of that, but I'm thinking, does the hotel have to change everything about its furnishings and even widen the hallway because you might have somebody who comes that's afraid if they get in a bed, it'll break on them. It's just, but this is where we are. It's like, whatever I want, you're supposed to cater to me. Maybe there's a hotel that will say, we're the plus-size hotel.
Well, I was just thinking about entrepreneurship here. Maybe someone will come out with something to take care of that niche audience, you never know.
What about, then you're going to have somebody who is like a tiny person say, I want a bed that, I can put my feet at the end of it. Is that going to be the next thing?
You think?
And I want a tub that's easy for me to step over into because my legs are short and I can't. I mean, it just never ends. It just never seems to end. But this live stream has to come to an end. But before we do, you know what? We're not going to. Yeah, we're going to go to Candace. I don't think we're going to get to all the stuff with the House. And here's why. Because if you watch the show this weekend, I'm going to get to that in both the monologue and in our first guest interview. So you want to know what I think about all of it? Watch the show this weekend. Candace Owens was on a college campus, and she is asked to respond to the fact that some students were feeling victimized by her presence. Not but just what she said, but just that she showed up to make a speech. I think her answer is one of the classic answers I've heard someone say to a young, triggered student. Watch.
Trans students on this campus who actively feel victimized by your presence here today. Additionally, you just pointed out that this man detransitioned, but earlier in your speech...
Guys, I want to hear her. Go ahead. What do I have to say? Just the question, please. No speech. What is the question?
What do you have to say to the trans students on this campus who feel actively victimized by your presence here?
Life's tough. Get a helmet, man. I'm too pregnant for this. Next question.
I absolutely love that. Life's tough. Get a helmet.
We could use that in a lot of instances.
Oh, I think that's great. Just get a helmet.
Yeah,
Life's tough. Life is tough.
It is tough.
That's part of what we get strengthened by is the challenges. And then she says, man, I'm too pregnant for this. I can't say that has been an issue I faced, although I guess there are some people who believe that a man can get pregnant now. We're living in that kind of crazy nonsense. If you didn't do it already, be sure to leave your thoughts in the comments section below. We'll still take a look at them. Be sure to subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, click the notification bell so the next time we have a live with Mike, we will let you know about it. And we plan on doing it every Friday, unless we tell you otherwise, which, we'll tell you if you're a subscriber and hit the notification bell.